This is an explanation question and we have to offer an explanation for the opposition of public schools. There is no conclusion in the argument, and the missing link is between the legislation being applicable primarily to private schools and the public school opposing the legislation. Our broad expectation from the correct answer choice is that it should explain why the public schools are opposing the legislation. Answer choice A. The argument mentions that the legislation is related to the teaching of a second language in middle schools, whereas this answer choice talks about public schools teaching a second language in high schools. So this answer choice related to high schools is just additional information and does not explain why the public schools are opposing the legislation. So let's eliminate this answer choice. Answer choice B. This answer choice says that the majority of public school students are bilingual. If the students are bilingual, the legislation which relates to teaching a second language is going to be beneficial to the students of public schools. So it raises further concern over rather than explain why the public schools are in opposition of this legislation. So let's eliminate this answer choice. Answer choice C. This answer choice talks about the lack of details about the exact number of public schools that would be exempted from the legislation. The argument is concerned with why the public schools are opposing the legislation. So the exact number of public schools that would be exempt from the legislation is just additional information and does not explain the opposition of the public schools. So let's eliminate this answer choice. Answer choice D. This answer choice talks about the requirements in some countries and how expensive those are with respect to this particular legislation. The argument is concerned with a particular legislation, and so this piece of information is out of scope. So let's eliminate this answer choice. Answer choice E. This answer choice says that public schools must match the educational offerings of private schools, and the private schools are not exempt from this legislation. If this is so, it indicates that if the legislation forces private schools to teach a second language, public schools, in order to match their offerings, will also have to take up the additional task of teaching a second language. So this answer choice offers a reason for the public schools to oppose the legislation, even if the legislation primarily applies private schools. Because this answer choice explains the opposition, E is the correct answer choice.